Diogo Dalot. Now, that is the name of a man that divides opinion in the Manchester United fan base. In my opinion, there is no doubt about the fact that he's a good footballer, but recently he has been incredibly frustrating, and he is starting to cause problems in the system that we are trying to use. Now, before we get into too much criticism, I think it's good to be fair to Diogo Dalot and also give him his plaudits. You may not be his biggest fan, but there are certain things that he certainly brings to the team. For example, intensity. Diogo Dalot is a player that is always available for Manchester United, and every time he plays, he does give everything. He's not one of these players that can ever be accused of downing tools, ever a player that can be accused of being lazy or not putting the work in. Diogo Dalot always works incredibly hard for United, and over the past few years, that is certainly something that we have needed. We also know that he's got the stamina to play for 90 minutes up and down the left-hand side. His fitness levels are extremely, extremely impressive. He never really stops running up and down this side, or down this side as well, and that's certainly something that United need. He's versatile. He can play in a few different positions. He can play left wing back, he can play right wing back. I still think he could do a job in the back three, and if we were talking about a back four, then he can play full back either side, and he can also invert into midfield. He certainly has some strengths, but recently, in terms of the balance that he is bringing to this system, in the 3-4-3, being right-footed, playing at left wing back with these players around him, it's just not really working, and something needs to change. So why is Dalot at left wing back an issue? Why is this a problem? Well, he's right-footed, and naturally, not only is he right-footed, he is also a right-sided player. He is a player who has sort of come through his career, come through the academies, as a right back who wants to play on the right side of the pitch. He's right-footed. The second you put him on the left-hand side, you're just sort of taking him out of his comfort zone. I think he's very capable of playing this side of the pitch, but when you play a right-footed player on the left-hand side, it is quite obvious what they are always going to want to do on the ball. You see, in football, the job in possession is actually quite simple. It's to try and get that ball in that net thing over there. That's what you're always trying to do when you've got the ball. And when you play a player like Dalot, who's right-footed, the easiest path for him to get towards goal is to come inside onto his right foot. That's how he feels that he can be most threatening. The problem is for United, that is immediately reducing our width at times because we play the ball to Dalot and he comes inside. Now that's not necessarily always a problem because it allows us to see rotations. It means that different players can move into different positions, we can move into different areas, we can use the right-footed passing angle to actually access the inside of the pitch sometimes. These things can all be very useful, or they could at a different club. For United, it's becoming a bit of a problem because if you look at the players in the area, sort of who Dalot is linking up with, who Dalot is working with, it doesn't work. See, Cunha is a right-footed player playing on the left, and Cunha will in moments drift wide, but his instinct always is to get central, to get into shooting positions in the final third. Bruno Fernandes, when he plays over here, or even Casemiro, again, both right-footed. So they're not the sort of players that are going to underlap into that channel and cross on their left foot, for example. They're not players that want to overlap out wide and get the ball on their left foot. It's all very right-footed, which leads to a lot of players coming inside, which leads to a lot of players sort of playing on top of each other and not really passing to each other. You can see Dalot and Cunha at the weekend basically didn't pass to each other at all, and that's a bit of a problem in terms of ball progression. Of course, always being too narrow makes it difficult to play through the pitch. If you are narrow, it means that the opposition can also be narrow. If they are narrow, they are likely to be more compact. They're closer together, the gaps are smaller, so it is easier for them to defend and cover the Manchester United players. So in this phase, I think Dalot can bring something to us. He does carry the ball quite well. He's quite effective in that way. And he's also quite a good progressive passer on his day. But it doesn't really work with what we've got around him. And we're not going to drop Cunha. And we're not going to drop Bruno. So Dalot sort of becomes a problem. Now, despite these problems, Manchester United have still been a team this season and in the past few weeks that have been able to get into the final third on a regular basis. And when we do that, we look something a little bit like this in our attacking structure. Of course, the players can rotate into different positions, but this is roughly what we look like. And we need to go across the front five. Let's mark them all. Amad, Mbeumo, Šeško, Cunha, Diogo Dalot. Now, if we look at these five players, there is quite obviously an odd one out. So we've got a winger. We've got a winger / an inside forward, we've got a striker, and we've got a sort of inside forward player. Then we've got a fullback. Diogo Dalot is just naturally in this system not as good at attacking as what a lot of the other players are. And again, you've got to consider the behaviour of these United players. Šeško is a striker, he plays quite central. Let's just unmark them all so it's not so jarring to look at. But the players around him, again, go inside. So Sesko's inside, Cunha's inside, Bruno's inside. Diogo Dalot can often be isolated. Now, on the right-hand side, that wouldn't be a problem. If you were isolating Amad time and time again, you'd actually think it's a great thing, because Amad has the ability to dribble past a man. He's a winger. He can be dangerous. He thrives in these moments where he can go past his man in the final third. He enjoys perhaps crossing into the box and things like that. When we look at Dalot, we sort of get the opposite. And I'm not trying to be too critical here. Dalot is just not an elite attacking fullback or wingback, and it's fine to say that. He's good in other parts of the game. He's really strong in the first phase. But as he gets forward into the final third, he's not a specialist. If we're leaving Diogo Dalot isolated on the left-hand side, he either needs to be able to cross really quickly, or he needs to be able to beat his man. He can't cross quickly because the ball is always rolled across onto his left foot, and Amorim commented on this at the weekend. Dalot is not left-footed, so can't play the cross quite as quickly, which is a problem. And he's also not a dribbler. He's not someone who is going to take people on. He's not someone who's going to go at the fullback. And if he does, he's not particularly effective. So the left side of the attack becomes a bit of a problem. And once again, Dalot isn't the profile we're looking for. Just on top of that, I think it's also worth pointing out the number of key passes that Diogo Dalot has played this season. You want your left-sided player in the final third to be extremely creative. So far this season, despite playing a lot of football, he clearly hasn't been. So yeah, on the same front, Dalot's, he's not a bad player, but he's not quite what we need in that position. Now, despite saying all of that, there is a positive to playing Diogo Dalot as a left wing-back. You see, when you play Dalot as a wing-back, as opposed to, example, Amad on the other side or any other more attacking player, the benefit with Dalot is he's a defender. You get yourself an extra defender on the pitch, which means defensively you should be a little bit more solid, you should be a little bit more compact, a little bit more difficult to play against, in theory. The problem is for Dalot, he's not a bad defender, I don't think. I think he is overly criticised at times. I think people are quite harsh on him. But he's not an elite defender either. And recently, he has been causing us a bit of a problem. Because as the opposition move the ball forward, and of course, everyone ends up over here for United, there's a problem. And the big problem is not that Dalot's not physical enough. Not that he's not good enough in a 1-versus-1 situation. The problem is when it comes to crosses, he's just too passive. He doesn't show enough interest in closing down a cross, in engaging the cross. It's almost like in the back of his mind, he's a little bit worried about being beaten. He's a little bit worried about, being skinned and made to look an idiot. He doesn't want that. So he'll sort of step off a little bit. The problem is we then invite crosses. And what I'm now going to do is show you some crosses that Manchester United have conceded from this season. United have not been good at defending the ball into the box, whether that's throw-ins or set pieces or open play. United have conceded in a lot of these moments. The last thing you want is then a wing-back who in open play also doesn't stop crosses. So Diogo Dalot in this position, he gets himself out here, for example, like against Burnley, but he just doesn't close the ball down at all, so the cross into the box is quite easy for the opposition to play. And when we've currently got Yoro and Amad in some matches defending at the back post, that's a problem. It's easy to cross from our left-hand side, and it's easy to attack our back post on the right. That's not something that we want to see. In terms of defensively for United, that makes us quite easy to play against. That's an easy avenue that the opposition can take if they want to hurt United. So again, Dalot becomes a bit of a problem. So does this mean that Diogo Dalot is a bad footballer? No. There are so many parts of the game that Diogo Dalot is good at. Again, to go back to what we said at the start, athleticism, intensity, physicality, the fact that he is available every week. He is one of the players who physically always seems to find it quite easy to play in the Premier League, and there's not many people that can do that. On a technical level, he's a very good player. He's a very good player. We saw a couple of seasons ago, under Erik ten Hag, Diogo Dalot was one of the fullbacks who could actually invert himself into midfield and play in the first phase. There were moments where he was genuinely press resistant in these positions. He was able to turn out under pressure in these moments to allow United to move the ball forward. We've also seen him from relatively central positions actually being quite creative at times for United, sliding balls through. For example, it was his pass to Benjamin Sesko the other day that led to Bryan Mbeumo's goal. Dalot is not a bad footballer. The problem is currently the system doesn't seem to suit him, this position doesn't seem to suit him, or this wide dynamic doesn't seem to suit him. When he's defending, he's not great at blocking and intercepting crosses, so that's not great. And on the ball, he leaves us a little bit narrow, coupled with all of these right-footed players near him. And then when he gets himself into the final third, again, he's not bad at crossing. He's not outright terrible, but he's not good either. And when you compare it to Amad on the other side, it's quite clear which side is going to be stronger in the attack. So again, it's not that Dalot's a bad footballer, it's just that the relationship with the players around him doesn't work with our current idea. So what are the solutions for Ruben Amorim? Well, that's something that we're going to have to see in the future. It might be a case of using more rotations. We started to see this a little bit more against Brighton. Diogo Dalot was allowed to come inside the pitch a little bit more, and I think that helped him to have a much better performance. We haven't seen it as much since then, but perhaps that's something that we could see in the future. If we do that, Dalot has a place in this team, because he can be very useful in there. The other solution, realistically, is to try someone different. Could you go Patrick Dorgu back on the left-hand side? At least he is left-footed, so he gives us that extra width in the final third. He can cross a little bit quicker, even if he is still lacking the quality. Maybe there's an experiment where you can move someone else over to this side of the pitch. For example, could Ahmad play as a left wing-back? He would be left-footed, he's a dribbler, and he's creative, and you could play someone else on the right, for example. Maybe that's something that we could do. Or perhaps we need recruitment. Maybe we need someone new to play on the left-hand side. Now, I don't think we need a fullback as such because we've got hundreds of them in the squad, but perhaps a winger that could play on the left, an Ahmad that could play on the left, something like that. Perhaps that is something that we could look for in the market. If you want to see videos on that type of player, let me know in the comments down below, because I can go out and look and try and find that profile for United to sign either in January or in the summer. In terms of right now, Dalot feels like a little bit of a problem in the starting 11, so I would probably lean towards Patrick Dorgu coming into the team and playing a few more games. But that's just me. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. And whilst you're there, if you could please leave a like, if you could subscribe, and also get your notifications on, well, that would be greatly, greatly appreciated because it really does help the channel. So if you could do that, it would be amazing. But apart from that, we're finished for today. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.